Today's reading is a continuation of the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. The parable of the rich man and Lazarus shows how the two classes represented by these men are estimated in the ancient world. There is no sin in being rich if riches are not acquired by injustice. A rich man is not condemned for having riches, but condemnation rests upon him if the means entrusted to him is spent in selfishness. Far better might he lay up his money beside the throne of God by using it to do good. Death cannot make any man poor who thus devotes himself to seeking eternal riches. But the man who hoards his treasure for self cannot take any of it to heaven. He has proved himself to be an unfaithful steward. During his lifetime, he had his good things, but he was forgetful of his obligation to God. He failed of securing the heavenly treasure. The rich man, who had so many privileges, is represented to us as one who should have cultivated his gifts so that his works should reach to the great beyond, carrying with them improved spiritual advantages. It is the purpose of redemption, not only to blot out sin, but to give back to man those spiritual gifts lost because of sin dwarfing power. Money cannot be carried into the next life. It is not needed there. But the good deeds done in winning souls to Christ are carried to the heavenly courts. But those who selfishly spend the Lord's gift on themselves, leaving their native fellow creatures without aid, and doing nothing to advance God's work in the world, dishonor their Maker. Robbery of God is written opposite their names in the books of heaven. The rich man had all that money could procure, but he did not possess the riches that would have kept his account right with God. He had lived as if all that he possessed were his own. He had neglected the call of God and the claims of the suffering poor. But at length, there comes a call which he cannot neglect. By a power which he cannot question or resist, he is commanded to quit the premises of which he is no longer steward. The once rich man is reduced to hopeless poverty. The robe of Christ's righteousness, woven in the loom of heaven, can never cover him. He who once wore the richest purple, the finest linen, is reduced to nakedness. His provision is ended. He brought nothing into the world, and he can take nothing out of it. Christ lifted the curtain and presented this picture before priests and rulers, scribes and Pharisees. Look at it, you who are rich in this world's goods and are not rich towards God. Will you not contemplate these sins? That which is highly esteemed among men is abhorrent in the sight of God. Christ asked, "What shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lost his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? In application to the new Jewish nation, when Christ gave the parable to the rich man and Lazarus, there were many in the Jewish nation in the pitiable condition of the rich man using the Lord's goods for self-gratification, preparing themselves to hear the sentence, "Thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting." The rich man was favored with every temporal and spiritual blessings, but he refused to cooperate with God in the use of these blessings. Thus it was with the Jewish nation. The Lord had made the Jews the depositaries of sacred truths. He had appointed them stewards of His grace. He had given them every spiritual and temporal advantage, and He called upon them to impart these blessings. Special instructions had been given them in regard to the treatment of their brethren who had fallen into decay, of the stranger within their gates, and of the poor among them. They were not to seek to gain everything for their own advantage, but were to remember those in need and share with them. And God promised to bless them in accordance with their deeds of love and mercy. But like the rich man, they put forth no helping hand to relieve the temporal or spiritual necessities of suffering humanity. Filled with pride, they regarded themselves as the chosen and favored people of God. Yet they did not serve or worship God. They put their dependence in the fact that they were children of Abraham. "We be Abraham," they said proudly. When the crisis came, it was revealed that they had divorced themselves from God and had placed their trust in Abraham, as if he were God. Christ longed to let light shine into the darkened minds of the Jewish people. He said to them, "If we were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham." Christ recognized no virtue in lineage. He taught that spiritual connection supersedes all natural connections. The Jews claimed to have descended from Abraham, but by failing to do the works of Abraham, they proved that they were not his true children. Only those who proved themselves to be spiritually in harmony with Abraham by obeying the voice of God are reckoned as of true descent. Although the beggar belonged to the class looked upon by men as inferior, Christ recognized him as one whom Abraham would take into the very closest friendship. The rich man, though surrounded with all the luxuries of life, was so ignorant that he put Abraham where God should have been. If he had appreciated these exalted privileges that had allowed God's Spirit to mold his mind and heart, he would have an altogether different position. To with the nation he represented, if they had responded to the divine call, their future would have been wholly different. They would have shown through spiritual discernment. They have means which God would have increased, making it sufficient to bless and enlighten the whole world. But they had so far separated from the Lord's arrangement that their whole life was perverted. They failed to use their gifts as God's steward in accordance with truth and righteousness. Eternity was not brought into the reckoning, and the result of their unfaithfulness was ruin to the whole nation. Christ knew that at the destruction of Jerusalem, the Jews would remember his warning, and it was so when calamity came upon Jerusalem, when starvation and suffering of every kind came upon the people, they remembered these words of Christ and understood the parable. They have brought their sufferings upon themselves by their neglect to God. Their God-given light shines forth to the world. In the last days, the closing scenes of this earth's history are portrayed in the closing of the rich man's history. The rich man was claimed to be a son of Abraham, but he was separated from Abraham by an impassable gulf, a character wrongly developed. Abraham served God, following his word in faith and obedience. But the rich man was unmindful of God and of the needs of suffering humanity. The great gulf fixed between him and Abraham was the gulf of obedience. There are many today who are following the same course. Through church members, they are unconverted. They may take part in the church service, they may chant the Psalms. As the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. But they testify to a falsehood. They are no more righteous in God's sight than in the veriest sinner. The soul that longs after the excitements of worldly pleasures, the mind that is full of love for display cannot serve God. Like the rich man in the parable, such an one who has inclination to war against the lust of the flesh. He longs to indulge appetite. He chooses the atmosphere of sin. He is suddenly snatched away by death, and he goes down to the grave with a character formed during his lifetime in partnership with satanic agencies. In the grave, he has no power to choose anything, be it good or evil, for in the day when a man dies, his thoughts perish.